Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time you are watching this. Welcome to the Madison podcast. I am Ben Lavender, New York's favorite British mortgage broker, whether you like it or not. Today I have a very special guest, and why I find this guest to be so special is that she has a unique story on how she kind of got into the business and passion. You know, passion isn't something that I see a ton in this business, candidly. So we have Cindy Brown from Home and Heart Realty in Rockville Center joining us today. Cindy, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome, America, is what I like to say. So let's jump into it because, as I said, you're a passionate person.
Yes.
You have a unique way of approaching the business. So let's go right into that. How, Cindy, did you get into or what was the driving force behind you getting into the business?
So for me, I have a passion of helping people, number one.
Okay.
So, but the second reason is really my story in terms of how I acquired my home as a single parent.
Okay.
I had a dream for my son in terms of owning a home because of the community that we lived in.
Okay.
All his friends really had homes. When he had to go, playing, I lived in a little studio.
Got it.
And because of that, I felt that there was more in me in terms of achieving my dream. So I had a friend who always told me, he said, "You are so good with people. You love helping people." He said, "You should be a realtor."
Yeah.
But
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, we've met a couple times, and you're always very smiley and bubbly, and just you have a very warm aura to you. So I could see you making someone feel comfortable very quickly. I mean, even with myself. So let's talk about that. Well, when was this?
This was about I bought my home 6 years ago.
Oh, cool.
But I'm in the business full time for a year now.
Gotcha. Okay. So what was it, or what were the challenges that you faced, right, when it came to buying a home? Was it educational? Was it financial? Was it just everything was a mess?
So the good thing about it, I came from the banking industry, so
Right.
I had the education in terms, and prior to that, I had a home because I went through a divorce.
Got it.
So I had the experience, but now I became a first-time home buyer again. So I had to wait during that time to purchase. What was challenging is as a single person, right? Knowing the income that you need, right? Having consistent in terms of employment, right?
Yeah.
Also knowing in terms of your credit score. But the biggest challenge for me was the down payment.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? Fortunately for me, being in banking and having relationships, and I think it's so important that people build honest relationships and long-term relationships with their banks so that they could know exactly what is out there. So fortunately for me, I was able to learn about the grants that were offered within our community.
Right.
Some of the companies in terms of grants is Long Island Housing Partnership, CHI, and I was fortunate to get a grant.
Okay, so this is wonderful. So we chatted about this briefly before we started. So for those of you that don't know, when a grant is not tied directly to the lender, this is very specific to New York, by the way. There's often a lot of red tape.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories, and when I say I've heard stories, I would say I get a minimum of one phone call a week of a client calling me saying, "Ben, I was approved for this grant, and I've been waiting 6 months, and even though I was approved for it before, now they're not giving it to me."
Yeah.
So your story is actually quite inspiring because it's the opposite of that case, right? So can you talk about the qualification process for each of those grants, Cindy? What were the requirements from a financial perspective, if any, and how long did the process take, and was it frustrating for you?
So number one, I can say diligence is very important, and determination, and knowing that it's possible. Right? The most important thing was you have to go through the home buying process with that particular community based organization. So they put you through the red tape in terms of making sure that your credit is in terms of the scores that the bank would ask.
Right.
Your income, but you have to do a course with them in terms of a home buying, first-time home buyer course.
Sounds like a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, so they educate you in terms of the importance of it, understanding, what the requirements are, the expenses of a home. So which is important for you, not just, you're coming from renting into purchasing, so it's totally different in terms of financial responsibility.
Can you talk about some of those expenses? Because it's something that a lot of people don't know, or not don't know, that's the wrong word, that they don't think about. They think, okay, I've got my principal, my interest, my taxes, insurance, what we call pity.
Yeah.
But talk about some of those unexpected expenses or expenses that are kind of an afterthought, Cindy, for some of our audience, please.
So going through the expenses, number one, you have to do an appraisal.
Right.
That you have to come out of pocket of. If you find a bank like you, Ben, might probably waived it because you're right.
That's the goal, always,
Right.
always.
In terms of having an inspector inspect the home, right?
Right.
But in terms of the expensive of owning a home,
That's what I was referring
right?
to. Yeah.
Owning a home in terms of utilities,
Oh,
you have insurance, right? And we're in New York, so in terms of homeowners insurance increase.
It's increased nationwide, by the way. Apparently, I hear different things, that it's got to do with, the California wildfires and this and that.
yeah.
But what I originally heard is that, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but it started in Florida when a bunch of homeowners kind of just started committing insurance fraud to get new roofs or whatever the case may be. So apparently that was the beginning a few years ago. And it's become a challenge in the mortgage business to get, it's not even just getting them a competitive quote in terms of a good deal. It's also getting a company to give them insurance. They have limitations on how much they can insure in a certain area. Some won't insure whatsoever. So that's like these days, that's a huge one. So that's a great one. What else?
In terms of looking at ways to save, as you talk about the insurance, bundling, biggest expense for me in terms of as a homeowner is in terms of utilities. Right? So knowing...
Switch the lights off.
Yeah. Utilities, gas. It's
Oh,
cold
yeah.
in New York City, in terms of...
It's rough.
Yeah. So knowing exactly, going through that program helped educate me in terms of knowing exactly what was important. In addition to that, they also guided you in terms of referring you to good companies in terms of mortgage companies that will give you an additional down payment.
Oh, cool. I got to get in with them. Okay. Let's go.
So, not only are you able to get maybe one in terms of grant, some companies allow you to stack grants.
Yeah.
So you could get one from, say, for example, you could get one from UBAN,
we can give them.
right? You give those grants, and in addition to that, you get one from another. So in total, you could stack almost maybe $50,000-$60,000 down in terms of down payment.
Not bad at all.
Knowing that was the biggest challenge for me in terms of my down payment.
Wait, so Cindy, if you don't mind me asking, how much did they give you in total?
They gave me $25,000.
Pretty nice.
And the bank gave me $11,000.
Yeah, I think, well, I feel, Cindy, that it goes back to what you were saying a few minutes ago, that New York is such a freaking expensive place to live. Most people, I don't know if most people live paycheck to paycheck, but it's just so hard to, the saying goes, you leave the house, you spend $100 easy just to breathe the oxygen. So it comes in handy, especially in a single parent household. So I could tell you that my average file, I don't know the exact number, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was above 90%, that has at least 2 incomes on it. Typically, because again, it's such an expensive place to live, right, that you need 2 incomes to qualify here.
And then, in terms of the 2 incomes, understanding how we're going to manage the expenses. The other thing for me in terms of buying that home, in terms of, you mentioned the red tape, they qualify you for a specific number in terms of the purchase price of the property.
Got it. So what happens if you go higher or lower?
They don't see it as a fit, so you may not qualify for that grant. So you have to find a house within that price range.
Okay, so it's a range, so there's a maximum.
Based on your income.
Okay, no, it's kind of like the way a pre-approval letter. Yeah, okay, that's logical.
It is within the pre-approval, but it's sometimes...
Well, it's separate, but it works the same way that you have a maximum.
Yes, but you can have a higher pre-approval but they will qualify for a lower amount in terms of
that makes sense,
Yeah.
because they don't want you to overburden yourself,
Yes.
which I totally get.
And then they have to approve the home. So even if you found a home that you like,
Oh,
they have to approve that home in terms of
so what does that mean? Approve the home, like in terms of the size of it,
the size
design.
of it. They'll make sure in terms of there's no risks, just like you're purchasing this in terms of bedrooms, bath, the foundation is right, the plumbing, the electrical.
So my presumption, and please correct me, is that what they want to review the home inspection and the appraisal.
They do that prior to you actually being approved for the home. So yes.
At what stage in the process? Like before contract signing, or between that and?
Once you place the offer. So before you go into contract.
Okay, so basically when the offer is verbally accepted.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Are they quick? Are they easy?
Yeah. They were pretty quick. I think for me it was not as difficult as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But the challenge was getting the funds. That's where the challenge was.
And how long did that process take? Did it feel like it was?
It felt like
PIA?
it was. Yeah, it was. And then it also felt that, is this going to happen? Because without that money, you're not going to close.
Right.
But it happened, and
what was the waiting process like?
it was like 2 months.
I've never heard it be that quick. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was 2 months.
So,
But fortunately, I was very diligent with it. I was very diligent with it, and also having a relationship with the banker is always important.
right.
In addition to that, as you say, as a realtor, it's about passion, having a passion to really help people.
So I wanted to ask you, Cindy, what was the time frame between you deciding, hey, it's time for me to buy a house. I want to get my son a bigger space and this and that, to you closing?
It was, in terms of, what do you mean, like going into contract or just the idea of it?
Just literally the idea.
Okay, about a year and a half.
I think that's really great for people to hear, because the way that it looks like, especially on like social media, and friends see their friends like buying a house and closing, and it's like bing, bang, bang.
No.
It doesn't go like that, right? It's kind of like, someone said this to me once, I forgot who it was, that it starts off as pillow talk, right? Especially with couples, right? You'd be like, oh, maybe we should buy a house. Or even if you're like talking to your son, oh, it's like, Mom, I'd love like a big house to play in, or whatever the case may be. And the time that it takes, because it's one of the biggest decisions of your life. So it needs to ruminate for a while, because even for you to take that step and even reach out to us, right? Because like we see it with clients that are, if I'm the first mortgage lender that they've spoken to, there's like some shyness and because it's very intimidating from their perspective. Not everyone, but most, I would say, understandably so. And then it's like, okay, so we've got to look at houses. This random guy is going to judge my finances and judge me, which is not the case whatsoever. It's like when you do it for 13 years in now, like you become numb. Like I'm not, like we don't judge anyone or anything. It's just like numbers, right? So, but from the consumer's perspective, it's like, no, you got to take those baby steps and slowly and feel comfortable. And then it's even more important to find the right realtor to work with that you feel comfortable with. Right. So when you did it, did you have a realtor yourself? How did that work?
So I think during that time, no, I did not.
Oh, cool.
So I was looking for the home myself. Actually, the realtor on the deal got the entire commission, because he was the buyer and the seller.
Good for him. The classic double dip. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, honestly. I mean, look, I think you should have your own agent represent you, but you got an attorney too. So.
Yeah, but in terms of, for me, as you say, a year and a half, I think is the pre-work before buying a home.
Right.
In terms of being financially sound.
So, please expand on that, Cindy. That's super important. And also, I have to say, I appreciate you being really open with that, because a lot of people aren't, because everyone gives away the good, and I was ready, and I had this together. It's not always like that. It's a process of getting your ducks in a row.
Yeah. So being financially sound, so prior to that, I went through a divorce. So I had to wait in terms of being honest with myself. Sometimes we don't want to be honest with ourselves to see, okay, what is the baseline in terms of where I am and where I want to go? What is my 3-year plan or 5-year plan. Right. Okay, so my goal was paying off my debt.
Right.
Whatever debt I have, I'm a very frugal person, but
I like that.
Yeah, but paying off my debt, making sure that I don't have any credit card debt, because I know my ratios will matter being in banking if I look to buy a home. So being honest with yourself and doing the pre-work before you actually take that step into buying a home, right? Working on your credit.
So is that where you would recommend people start with their credit and their debts? I
will recommend people being honest with themselves and actually not being afraid
to
take the step.
That's easier said than done, Cindy, because I think you need the right motivation.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, and look, buying a house is that motivation. And it's like, I'll put it to you this way too, Cindy. So when I got into the business, 2025, right? So when I got in 2012, I was doing a lot of loans for people buying like 2 families in Southeast Queens, Springfield Gardens, Rosedale, etc. And a lot of them didn't have amazing credit. They didn't have bad credit. It was just like in the mid 6s, right? Yeah. Some in the low, some in the high. And at the time, a lot of them were like, maybe I should wait and, pay off some debt and get my credit up. And I always say, like, if you can do that quickly, that is a really good thing to do, but not if it takes away from your down payment or your funds to close for the transaction. Now, if you get a grant that pays for all that, then it's kind of irrelevant,
right?
Well,
they didn't really pay for all of that.
Right.
I still had to come out of pocket.
Well, I'm saying, but that can replace the other money that you have, right? Yes. So you definitely want to get your ducks in a row for sure, because that's how it begins. Mm-hmm. But I do want to mention as well, you don't want to be too stringent on yourself. So for instance, I come across some people who are like, I don't want to buy a house until I have an 800 credit score and a 20% down payment. And then I say to them, how long will it take for you to do that? Yeah. And have you gone through the numbers of, when you pay off your, paying your rent and all your other bills, how long will that take? 90% can't answer the question, 10% can, and they have an actual plan, they close and they execute. The point that I'm getting to, the long way around, as we can see, is that these people that I was doing loans for back then, even though they didn't have the best credit, they just wanted to buy a house. Yeah. But what happened over time, they were buying those 2 families for like $400K to $550, right? They're now worth $1.3 million. Yeah. I've helped them refinance and buy more properties, more rentals more specifically. And what a lot of them have also done actually is that they've purchased more rentals, and then they purchased a single family for themselves to live in. Yeah. And the rentals pay for their own home, and meaning the homes themselves and the single family that they live in. Wow. Right? So that can happen. So I mention that because there's 2 sides of it. We want to make sure that you take those steps, but you're not too strict on yourself and you're too hard on yourself, because then you're sabotaging. Yeah. So that's not a route that we want to go. But continue, please.
But as Ben said, right?
Oh, yeah.
He said, don't wait to buy real estate and wait.
I love it. You're listening. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So I think in terms of the fear and the comfort level of renting, a lot of times people are just afraid to take that step. And I think for me, what I've found in terms of my success is giving individuals that comfort and allowing them to believe that it's possible. Because I have a story where I had a client call me to rent, and he didn't know about the possibility of owning a home, right? And I assured him that, you know what, I can help you get a grant. What was your income? What was your credit score? And it fit. And today, he still write me thank you cards because, I guided him through that process.
He wouldn't have bought a home if it wasn't for you.
Yeah.
Right? You were the catalyst. He had the capabilities, or maybe he needed a little massaging. Yeah. But you ultimately, and I've seen that with a few rental agents, not many. It's some that do both rent and sales, and then they're like, why are you going to put all this money, like $15K for security, rent, everything else, when you could just buy a house with it? Yeah. Right? And I think having someone that looks out for them that way is truly valuable. So that speaks to you.
Because you're just moving the money from, one place to the other.
Right. A more intelligent place. Yes. For sure. You build that equity. You're good. I mean, everyone all should know the story by now. But Cindy, what I want to ask you more specifically is, I love asking this question, who is your ideal client?
Okay, my ideal client.
I don't want to hear 6'5", handsome, lots of money.
Ben, honestly speaking, I don't have an avatar in terms of my target market.
Right.
Right?
Or certain personalities or types of people.
I don't.
Oh,
Because this is the thing, right? How can I say? Personality avatar, no. I get most of my leads from word of mouth. Because
From what?
Word of mouth.
Oh, word of mouth.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because I'm very community oriented.
Got it.
So with my passion to help my community, being out there, people usually send me individuals. So I vet them, and then from there, then is where I grow my business.
Got it.
So it's not that I don't say I don't have a target client, an individual who is
Sorry.
who how can I say? I wouldn't say I have a target client, Ben, but I have individuals that within my network I get the referrals from.
Got it.
I don't shy away anyone.
How do you reach out to that? How do you market yourself to
So
that
how I market
community?
myself. I market myself through in terms of social media.
Right.
Right? Word of mouth, and I do a lot of community events. I'm very passionate
What kind of events?
I do a lot of women's events.
Oh, cool.
I have a women's group. It's called Sisters of Excellence.
The Score Sisters?
No,
What was it?
no, Sisters of Excellence.
The Sisters of Excellence.
Yeah.
It's a cool name. It's
Yeah.
got a nice ring to it. Rolls off the tongue very nicely, too.
Yeah. So I do a lot of community events because I feel it's important for us to educate our community. So I do events in terms of home buying seminars.
Oh, cool.
I do maybe a health and fitness event.
I like that.
I'm putting together an event.
Is that a passion of yours, health and fitness? It is mine, too. That's why I ask.
I
Very
also
cool.
do art in terms of women in the arts.
Hmm.
Yeah, so last year I did an event called Women in the Arts where I have different women performing and displaying their talents on my platform.
Very cool.
So based on the fact that I'm so involved in my community, a lot of my leads come from there,
Right.
but word of mouth. So I market through.
Well, it happens naturally, too, because the beauty of it is that through these events, people get to know you. And then whether those people use you directly or they recommend you to someone, that's right, they get to see and understand your personality, too, which is indeed very welcoming.
Thank you.
So how much? Oh, we're 20 minutes in. Very nice. Okay, we've got a little. I don't want to finish up yet. I want to keep this going. So what I want to do actually is ask you the opposite.
Okay.
What is the type of client who is not a good fit to work with you, if anyone? Doesn't have to be anyone.
I think not a good fit is somebody who's unrealistic and not open to growth.
Okay, please expand on that, because I've got my ideas, and trust me, I could let off a barrage of things, but let's not.
So unrealistic. So I had a client recently in terms of her credit score is about 550.
Got it.
Right? She has a lot of debt. It's not impossible for her to purchase a home, but this is not the right timing.
Right.
So it's being realistic to say, okay, fine. Within the next 6 months, I'm going to focus on eliminating some of my debts, get my credit to at least, say, 680,
Right.
and then take that step in terms of purchasing.
I'm going to step in real quick. So for those of you that don't know, if you have a credit score under 580 for FHA, it's a minimum down payment of 10%. Okay? It rarely happens because why? People who have credit score under 580 typically have high credit card bills, right? So chances are that individual doesn't have 10% down, but we've done it a bunch of times, so it does happen. Above 580, you could do 3.5% down, and of course there are grants and other programs. But please continue, Cindy. I just wanted to pop that in.
Yeah, so someone who is unrealistic, as I mentioned, are not open to growth, because I believe I'm a master networker.
Okay.
Right?
I could see that.
Yeah. I'm a gifted networker.
Nice.
I'm humbled by it. So even if that individual isn't at that place right now, I can help her in terms of taking the steps or coaching her to get there. But if you're not open to growth, I can't help you.
Right, and I don't know what's to blame for that. I mean, look, it could be someone's own individual issues, but I honestly blame TikTok. Right, I blame TikTok for saying all this. You could do 0% down with poor credit and no income and this and that, and so everyone thinks that it's so easy. And don't get me wrong, there are instances, very small instances where these things are true.
Yeah.
But it's so rare. You have to fit into a very tight, like, little bucket, and it's just varies by state and by town and city.
Yeah.
It's not something to just blankly go over. I have not logged into TikTok for a very long time.
Okay.
Yeah, all my stuff gets posted there automatically. Instagram I'm on all the time, but it's just it's doing a disservice to a lot of people, and people get their hopes up and then they get upset, like, oh, I thought I could.
Then they give you a bad name because they feel like you don't want to help, but it's not that.
Not at all. Not at all. And something that you said earlier about purchasing a home as a single parent, it could be quite challenging. And I remember this. I did a first-time home buyer seminar. This must have been about 10 years ago, right? And I had a gentleman come who was actually a friend of mine. Not a very close friend, but a friend. And he's like, interrupts the seminar, and he's like, my mom couldn't buy a house. She was denied for being a single mother. Right. So I do want to expand. I can't speak to, prior to when I was in the business, I can't recite every single law that barred certain demographics from buying. But at least since I've been in the business, there is no law or anything that would bar a single mother, father, whatever the case may be, which is important to say because some people think that way. Yeah. And it's more likely to be their financials, right? But are their financials a function of being a single parent? What if the other parent isn't fulfilling their financial obligations, and it's very stressful, right? So these are things to be aware of, but no, there's no single mother, pusher.
With my story, Ben, I did that deal on my own in the house, and the seller was sitting right there. Because I saw the house, I liked it, and I told the agent, I said, I want to place an offer. He said, well, okay, let's talk to the seller. He filled out the form there. I told him how much I was going to put down, and we did the deal right there. And I wasn't like, I didn't have no big support system. I didn't have an agent with me, but I had a great attorney. And
how did you go about educating yourself on the process?
Number one, the first time home buyer course that they offered.
Okay, so that was good.
Yeah,
okay.
But I had the experience in the past,
right?
And number one, and the other thing is just being in banking, but knowing that what I wanted is important.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, what I wanted was important because you're not going to find everything in the house that you're purchasing. No. But what was important to me, there were 3 things that was important to me. Okay. The school district.
Of course, son.
Now my son having his own room in terms of the number of bed, and that he has a backyard.
Oh, okay.
So once it fit,
that's not too hard to find, honestly. You're like the least demanding client I've ever come across in my life. Like that's because standard.
I knew I wanted to stay within the same school district. I didn't want to take him out of his environment, right?
He's got his friends.
And everything. So, but also just understanding that, now when I look back, a lot of individuals like, oh my God, why you bought that house? But now it's like, if I decide to put my house up for sale, I already have like $250,000 in equity in it. Right. So
that's very inspiring as well. That's huge.
Yeah. So it's the time is now.
Yeah, and we could expand on that too, actually, Cindy. I'd love for you to drop your thoughts on this because, like, I've always had a thing that whenever I want to accomplish a goal, I don't tell anyone. Yeah. I don't tell anyone, not for the reason that we're about to talk about, but the reason is because studies have shown that when you consistently talk about a goal that you're trying to achieve, your brain, when you fantasize and think about it, it interprets it as if you've already done it because you're getting the high off of it. Yeah. That's the primary reason. The second reason is kind of what you just talked about. Yeah. You've got, let's just use the blanket word or term of haters, right? Yeah. People seeing that you are moving on or going up in your life, and let's say it's a cousin. It could be family too. Family is a big one. So is that something that you dealt with yourself with family and friends?
Yes. I didn't share.
Smart.
I didn't share.
You asked me. Very smart.
I didn't share. until the moment that I closed.
Genius.
I think I had 2 individuals that knew. My friend I have almost 20 years now, but didn't share a lot because I knew that I was building myself back.
Right.
And you don't want that discouragement, right?
No.
And you don't want people who never had your experience to put, as the Caribbean people say, their mouth in your life.
Got you. That's such a great saying.
Yeah, yeah, right? Because
if I said that, I wouldn't sound as good as you, obviously.
yeah,
but,
yeah. So
well,
you don't
I'll
want
practice.
anybody putting their mouth on your life,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of times people don't know how to go through the process, but they choose to give their opinion, and then it discourages you because it could be somebody you trust.
Right.
And as a result of that, you decide to not move forward. And I've learned, just like you, Ben, I learned that you gotta just move on and do it. And as they say, work in silence and let your success make the noise, right?
I love that. I try and live by it. I admit that I don't always.
Yeah, me too.
Because you got to
Yeah,
let
you get
people know who
excited.
you
Yeah,
are
yeah,
and you know
yeah,
like what
yeah,
you've done,
yeah,
but
yeah,
you know
yeah.
you can't. It's also like
Few.
I was talking about this. I was teaching CE on Tuesday, I think it was. Wow, this week's just flown by. I was talking about like my personality is that I don't like to talk about my accomplishments too much because I get complacent very easily.
Oh, gotcha.
Right,
Yeah.
but some people, it's good to let them know, but let them know after the fact. So to kind of reiterate the lesson here is that sometimes it's best if you're trying to accomplish something big like buying a house to keep it to yourself.
It is.
You know?
It is. I agree.
You got the people that will sabotage you, and it's not the type of person that you want to be, and unfortunately you can't really control who your family is. So sometimes you just have to deal with that, but you can control your friends.
Yeah.
Right? So if you got friends like that,
Yeah.
you need some new friends.
Yeah, definitely. And I've learned on my journey, people lack vision,
Right?
and maybe your vision is a bit bigger than theirs, and as a result, they try to dim your lights.
Yeah.
And you have to recognize that God made all of us with different gifts, talents, and you have to tap into who you are. And I think what really gave me the strength is understanding that we're all unique, and that's what Sisters of Excellence is all about.
Gotcha.
Because nobody could be Ben,
No.
and nobody could be Cindy.
Impossible.
So, is embracing who you are, having that self-love, and moving forward and taking over the world.
And I will add that when people do that and try and dim your light, the truth is that it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah,
It's just it's
their
their
own
own.
insecurities.
And to add as well, most of them aren't doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
It's just a
work-
response because it challenges their reality and their relationship on how they envision you. They're not trying to do it. It does mean that deep down they are whatever, a petty, envious, jealous person. That is true, but it's a way, not that they're trying to, but it's how that comes out.
It's the inner work that they have to do on themselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of people sometimes don't work within, right?
Yeah.
They see you and they didn't know exactly what it took for you to get to where you are. And then
It's a hard thing to do, Cindy, to take like a hard look at yourself and be like, I'm like this, I could improve here. But I think it's the best way to be. I mean, who wants to be the same their whole life and just, even if you're in a great place, like we can always get better and improve. It's one of the foundations of my relationship with my fiance is that we've always strived. We're going to grow. Change is inevitable one way or another.
That's so important.
But you have to keep going, whether it's relationships or business or health. You have to do it. I mean, it's more fun.
It is.
You know?
And it's fun when you accomplish great things. When
Yeah.
you go through, they say trials come to make you strong. When you
I haven't heard that, actually.
Yes. Trials come to make you strong. So in terms of going through the process of it, it's just like you're building muscles. It's painful, but at the end, it's a bigger picture and,
And you're bigger, stronger,
and you're
faster,
bigger, stronger, and you're ready to...
and more handsome,
Yeah.
hopefully. Okay, so let's... Oh, okay, wow, we did go for a while.
good?
So we're not done yet, Cindy. We have to finish up with our... And you could take a minute here, right? Because we can always edit this, chop this out, whatever the case may be. your mundane mic drops. So to repeat the challenges, like every podcaster does, because again, these days, everyone and their mother has a podcast, is to make something mundane sound like a mic drop. Right? Take your time. I can give you an example if you like.
Yeah, give me an example.
Okay. So let's do the one that we all... This is true, but we've been saying it for 3 years, so it's become mundane. When interest rates go down, home prices are going to go up because everyone is going to start buying again.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Which it's 100% true, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah.
But it's not world, shifting.
Yeah. When interest rates go down, home prices go up because everyone is going to be chasing after it.
You know what? That actually just sounds like good information, right? That's we got to find something else. But for now, that will do.
Okay.
Because you did do well. The problem is it sounded good. So
It's not supposed to sound good?
no, it's supposed to sound like dumb. It's supposed to sound good but dumb, which is hard to do. It's actually good. It's a great challenge for an actress, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, you want me to redo it?
No, that's good. We'll go with that. Okay, so
What's next?
what's next is that we need to tell the people of America and everyone else that listens to this, how can they contact you? How can they reach out to you if they are in need of your assistance and services?
So my name is Cindy Brown with Home and Heart Real Estate in Rockville Center, Long Island, and my number is 917-868-4955. Looking forward to helping you.
Thank you, Cindy, for joining us. You have been fantastic. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and also thank you for being personal and talking about your own experience.
Yeah.
It's not something that we get often, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Peace out, Cub Scout.